I always feel like I have to do this properly, and
Yes.
it's one of those things where now it feels very tight, and so I'm doing it with my fingernails.
Okay, that's risky.
There we go.
Nice.
I purposely brought a new flavor, so we're going to try this for the first time.
Let's see how it goes.
It tastes very similar to white, but everything sort of tastes like, I think I was talking to Dunbar about this. Everything tastes like what I picture old school snow cones tasted like at the county fair in the US.
Interesting.
It has that sort of chemically color taste that you get the red, white, and blue because it's America, and you go to the county fair and you get the shaved ice, and it's like supposed to be strawberry, blueberry, and I don't know what.
And very sugary as well.
Yeah, and whatever it is, all feels like it is very whatever same chemicals they use in this.
Yeah.
So it brings me back to childhood a little bit, perhaps.
Good memories, I hope.
Yeah.
Good memories.
I somewhat miss a good county fair from the US in the 80s where everything was like, they would show up in your town or your town, let's say.
Yeah.
The city would be a little too large for a county fair. They'd set everything up, and then they would be there for like 2 weeks. And then you go with your family, but everything is, set up and collapsed. So you always wonder about the safety of these things because everybody's also hired on
Yeah.
right for that moment, or it's very seasonal. So you have seasonal workers. And I feel like in the 80s, there was not as much of a litigation atmosphere in the US.
No, absolutely not.
So you never really knew what was going to happen, but you had all sorts of what would now if you saw a movie of those things, it is like Stranger Things, actually. There you go.
Yeah, interesting.
Stranger Things does a good job of capturing what it was like
In
to
the
grow
80s.
up in the 80s in the US with the BMX bikes, with
Oh, yeah.
with the middle school, all of that, with the ice cream parlor at the shopping mall, and you'd go hang out at the shopping mall. But yeah,
Nice.
You're back this week. Dunbar's out.
Nice. Yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you always for chatting with me and for having me on.
Well, the
Thank you,
plan for so long has been to get all three of us in the same room, and we keep missing it, and it won't happen next week. Next week, Dunbar
Yeah.
will be back. You're
I'll
out.
be away.
So maybe in 2 weeks, we'll
Yeah.
finally have this happen. We've been talking about doing a longer session. So doing an hour and a half or something to really
I'd love
dig into
to.
some topics.
Looking
For
forward to
today,
it.
tell me, you wanted to start with what it means to be a product designer. And I can rant on this, but
Yes.
I've already opened on my monologue here. So tell us, product designer 2026, what does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the region? And then you can pitch it back to me when you're ready for old man crankiness.
Well, we can start with the crankiness if you want, but it's quite an interesting time to be a designer. I think generalists now have a moment. I think it's going to be very good career for generalists who are really good enough in a lot of things rather than specialists. If you're a specialist and you say, I'm a Figma ninja, or I'm a design system lead, or I only look after this specific kind of skill, this is where people will struggle, because some of those skills, if they're execution based, they might be taken away by other disciplines, not necessarily AI, but maybe other disciplines.
Do you feel this is the classic up and down thing? It was like you go back to 2000s and you had information architect
Yeah.
and web designer and
Webmaster.
then webmaster and all this. And then, and then you would have mobile designer,
Yep.
mobile web designer, all these things. And then around the mid 2015, then you had your unicorn phase and everybody was hiring for that. Then you went back into specialists, and now we're getting back into generalists.
It's almost this oscillation of skills. The toolbox is the same, but here's the thing. The time it takes from defining what needs to be done, and framing the right problems, all the way to how to do it, it's still constant. So you still need to do your discovery, you still need to do the research, you still need to understand what the problem is, you still need to do the business modeling and understand why this business should exist and how the users are going to benefit from this business, but also how the designer will design the experience and the journey map based on that realization of value from the business side. with the team, with the stakeholders, with the PMs and engineers and everything. But the time it takes to execute on those solutions, it has shrunk a lot.
Okay, I was going to push back and argue with you and say, you're giving me the right questions, but the process has fundamentally changed. Perhaps.
It depends on the topic.
But before we even get into that,
Yep.
my rant on this, how do you think of a product designer? And let me caveat this, in the realm of digital experiences, digital devices, all of this. But tell me the difference, because in the last 5 years, it seems like we have this rise of UX and UI, and those are the dominant, not platforms, dominant titles that I see. I have problems with that.
I have a lot of
problems. But then
yeah,
I see people saying, well, I'm a product designer, or in the last few years, you should say you're a product designer. And I'm like, the hell were you people doing if you weren't doing that? But I'm starting to see the difference. But before I go, you tell me how you see the difference.
I still think that UI/UX designer, whatever that means, is very tactical, and it's 5 years ago, probably 8 years ago kind of title that doesn't resemble a lot, because it's specifically mentioning that you are designing the UI, but also thinking about the UX. You're clubbing both of them, but you are very tactical in the minutia. Product is a little bit more holistic, and you're thinking about what's the product viability, how you are reaching with the PMs. What's the product viability? What's the product usability and the feasibility? You're running all this with engineers as partners, with PMs as partners, with data science as partners, with your business stakeholders as partners. But you're thinking about the product and how it fits in the world. I try to think right now the best move is to start thinking about experience design, because a product in its very limited sense, a feature is called a product, right? And also a product as an app is called a product. A platform like a back office tool is called a product. But the experience design is a little bit more holistic. And I tried as my best to look for and work with designers who think about the end-to-end experience. What are we doing to make people adopt this new touch point that we just released, or we want to release? What are we going to do to understand our customers? What are we going to do to design the experience? Whether the experience is pixel-based or voice-based or any solution-based, doesn't matter. So going back to my point about generalists, the future is there for people who are not afraid to try out different solutions, not Figma-based solutions, but solutions for whatever problem they frame, whatever problem they identify and define with their users, with their business stakeholders. So going back to the point about the UI, UX, look at everything that I just mentioned. UI, UX is just a sliver of this. And if you don't have a solution that's based on interaction design, information architecture, or linear journey that's very predictive and very deterministic, you're going to struggle if you frame yourself as UI/UX designer, right? So you're going to be literally eaten alive by Figma Make or Lovable or any solution designed by AI. So yeah, this is just my rant. I think I captured the majority of the overall generalization of our discipline. But you seem like you have an even bigger rant.
Why, yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Actually, where you went in terms of what is a product designer is not where I expected you to go. I really like it. I do agree with everything there. Where my rant will begin, everything that you just described to me is like your baseline as a designer. It boggles my mind when I talk to somebody and they're like, well, I'm a UX designer. I'm like, I've been trying to use less profanity, but it's like, are you kidding me? So like, you're not going to think about the visuals of this. Well, that's for the UI designer. No. Get out of my team, get out of my organization. You are not made to work with me. I'm sorry, but if that's your narrow band thinking, you are thinking so, as you said, tactical, minutia, like, oh my God. And it drives me absolutely bonkers.
Yep.
Right. And for the people who work within the Sapient organization that we have in the Middle East, I think we've done a pretty good job at conveying this is what your baseline is. If your
100%.
baseline is below that, maybe it's time to shift where your future might be, right? And I don't mean that in a mean or negative way. I'm saying it in a very forceful and aggressive way. I know there are some people that just purely love the visual aesthetic side. I know there are people who just want to work on icons. I know there's people who just want to do photography, right? So I do appreciate when people want to specialize in things. And I do think there is an area for specialization. So what you said in terms of thinking about the product, the business, the product market fit, the viability, the feasibility, all of these things, yes. And what I didn't hear you mention that I would add is system thinking.
Oh yeah,
And
that goes without saying, 100%.
But again, you say
It's so basic to the point that I shouldn't mention it.
you say it shouldn't be there. This morning, I'm looking at a proposal for a company that we're thinking about working with. They have sent me over all of their design work because they wanted to say, you know, look, we might want to level this up. So you make a pitch on it. But in their view, they're like, I think this is pretty solid. I'm looking through it, and the exact struggles I was thinking, people who called themselves UX and UI designers are the people who worked on this, because they looked at every screen as an individual piece.
Yeah.
Right. And so the first thing I notice is, like, there's a lot of forms and form fields. It's insurance. And at some points you had errors above. At some points you had errors below. At some points you had labels in line where when you gave focus, that label disappeared. Sometimes the labels were on top. Sometimes they used secondary or tertiary information right below the form field, which means you can't put an error there. And so I'm looking at this, and each screen to itself makes total sense. In a system, it is disastrous.
Of course.
And the thing that I'm looking at within Sapient, we have our own AI tools. And one of those, you feed in a design system, and then it can use that design system to then look at Figma and say, oh, I can just, like plop, 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 plop.
Yep.
So it looks at the flow in Figma, and then it recreates that in code because it already has all the components in code. Right. And that's not all, like, there's more products beyond Sapient that do that type of work. If you don't have a great componentized system, you have to build every screen. So from the point of view of pitching a client, it's like, okay, yes, I need you to buy this, small team of 2 or 3 designers for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to cost us money. It will decrease your development by like 80%.
100%.
I don't even know how to say that.
Absolutely.
And so that's my thing with a product designer, is you're thinking in that systems term. And I really liked where you took it, but yes, and everything, like more of this. And with what you said with generalist, with the AI tools, you have more ability now at your fingertips to figure out product market fit, to figure out, different ideas of solutions. So as you said, you're adding or extending your toolbox. It's not a if else type of statement.
I'm not sure if it's a contrarian point of view. I don't see design systems as a design topic. I see it as an engineering topic. And whoever named the design system didn't do justice to the core of it. Because here's the thing. I don't really care if the design system designer has the perfect design on Figma, but it's not really implemented and tokenized and properly adopted on GitHub in the code. If you have 0 design system engineers in your team, you don't have a design system. It doesn't matter what you do on Figma, because here's the thing. That design system designer is going to do all the adoption and all the documentation on all the metrics and like lunch and learns with the team. And you have 10, 15 designers adopting that exact design system in their designs. But yet the engineers in their squads are literally taking those components that were really done well on Figma, but they are copying and pasting code, and they are doing it their own thing, and they are showing required field validator, sometimes at the top, sometimes at the bottom. Design system without engineers is not really a design system.
You're just saying things that I'm agreeing with
Again.
again. So I actually don't necessarily fully agree with you. I think there is a design system because you need to understand how components work and the reusability of those components across your screens and your flows. And you need to understand how those components adapt towards different endpoints. What I think you're getting at, and what I would like to say and to again, you're giving me lots of things to say and to. Yes, I think design systems are or need to be an engineering topic. I think they need to be a design topic as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I think designers also need to stop shirking responsibility of understanding what is happening on the back end that impacts the experience. One of the things that I will talk to designers about, we just had this discussion. I'm working with a project in Australia, multiple of them actually, that has had the same sort of situation where I'm using the app and I'm like, well, this screen is slow, or the screen's loading really slow. It's not my connection. What's going on? And I'll talk to the designer will be like, oh yeah, load slow. I'm like,
the back end.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, well, it's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
I'll talk to the engineer and be like, oh yeah, we have to do 4 API calls and one of them isn't super quick. Okay. Did we not know this? I'll go back to the designer and spot on. They'll be like, but that's an engineering problem.
No, it's not.
And I'm ready to flip over a table. I'm like, again, do you not understand what your job is? Do you not
because he is framing his job as a UI UX title or even product designer title. But if you frame your job as experience designer, and speed and responsiveness and delay is part of the experience, you cannot press a button and wait 5 minutes for it to respond. That's part of your responsibility. However, it's part of your accountability. Probably it's not part of your responsibility to fix those 4 API calls, but it's for you to advocate for that. Speed is a feature. Lagging is a friction. So how can we make it together as a team to respond faster to the user?
Yes. And what I say is, when a story about your application hits the New York Times, they're not going to say it had 4 API calls that were slow. It's going to say this is a shitty experience.
One of the worst and slowest apps ever. Yeah.
And it just, again, it boggles my mind. I really don't care what you call yourself. I think that's a red herring of a conversation.
Yeah.
So for me, it's how somebody like me who's leading the organization sets the expectations. And for those people who don't want to meet those expectations, how those people are then handled in whatever way needs to be sorted out, right? You need to grow new skills. We're happy to get you training, right?
Yep.
But we need a shift in how you view your job, period.
100%.
Right? And I'm amazed by how many times I get pushback on this. Well, that's not my job. That's not, whether it's a regional thing, I've moved from a different region. And so my job here is, I don't care. You're here now, right? This is what's expected of you.
Yeah.
And I know from talking to you and doing the interviews that you're smart enough to pick these things up.
100%.
It is just digging in heels. And it is the same thing when I see AI tools, right? This automatic thing of like, well, we should learn these tools. Those tools won't replace me. You're like, I literally did not say that. Sounds like someone is having a crisis of confidence at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe you need to solve that first. But the tools that are there, we need to start using them. And this goes back to, I think, like the first episode Dunbar and I did. It's like, you can't keep your head in the sand, pick up the tools. And I'll admit, I'm still not the best, right, at picking up all the different tools for what's out there. But I had a conversation this week with my old podcast host, Guus, who's out in Amsterdam. And he gave me this feedback. It's like, on the podcast that you're doing now with you and Dunbar, you tend to think either or, like it's AI tools or it's not. And he's like, I'll say it politely. He was like, I don't think that's the right way to think about it. It's just an extension.
Yeah.
So what you said at the beginning, you're still going through the same questions. now you have an extended toolbox of things to use.
And it's also supercharging what you're really good at, but probably lacking time, or it's augmenting what you're lacking in terms of skill set so that you can be better in what you do. But in reality, a great chef in the kitchen, whether they have a wooden stove, whether we have a state-of-the-art modern stove, regardless what they do, they still need to prepare the recipe. They still need to blend and infuse the different ingredients. They still need to think about the experience of presenting this dish to their user, which is the customer sitting outside. And you know what? The customer sitting outside in the restaurant doesn't care if that plate was prepared on a state-of-the-art kind of stove or shitty stove.
Well, and in some cases, you actually pay for the shitty experience, right? Like I want to go out to nature and watch somebody cook on like an old school,
wood,
hearth or whatever.
Yeah.
You brought up something, the whole conversation we're having here about like product design and all this, it essentially comes down to your range of thinking of what you need to accomplish, right? I need to create an application, whatever that, an app or a website. And there is a range of ways that I think about this as a person who is crafting that design. To me, again, the title is useless. It is just what's that range that you're thinking about. When you brought up cook, I remember, well, this is actually two great examples of this. I said to somebody, like, I don't know, this was in the last year, oh, you're a cook. And the person looked at me and was like, I'm a chef. It's like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
He's like, a cook follows a recipe. A chef tries to figure out, what are, and again, I could be explaining this very wrong. It's not my field, but a chef is somebody who sort of tries to understand the fundamentals of what to prepare, how to prepare, and they are managing cooks. They may not be cooking themselves.
Exactly.
And I just had a conversation also, which it makes me think how much I know about my own discipline and how little I know about other disciplines. On New Year's Eve, I was at a club in Malaysia, and we got a table behind the DJ booth. And I guess there was some artist performing there. Whatever. I don't know. I don't listen necessarily to club music. I like heavy metal, but the person is performing, and then they come out of the, again, to me, DJ booth. and we're the only other table behind the DJ booth with this person and his friends.
Yeah.
So we're just like striking up conversation. So I was talking to the guy and I said, oh, you're a DJ. And he's just stopped. He's like, no, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it was nice because I didn't know him. So I wasn't like fawning all over him or trying to be friends. And I think he actually took it as like, oh, sort of cool. Maybe I can educate you for a moment. And I was very happy to be like, tell me the difference. Yeah. But yeah, that feels like that cook, chef, DJ, artist, that feels like that UX product.
It's exactly that. It's UI UX or actually product or experience design. You're designing the whole experience. You're thinking about the experience. It's the same thing. Cook on the tactical side versus chef.
Well, there's prep, right?
Yeah.
Prep, cook, chef. And there's like executive chef.
And sous chef somewhere.
Oh, like sous chef.
3 levels down. Yeah.
Okay, so you got like ACD, director, and then you up to executive chef, which is like, me now as VP, and you just do emails.
Yep.
You're like, oh, like you're a chef. Like, no, I just write emails. That's what people, like when I tell people like, oh, I do UX, like, oh man, like, can you help me with a website? I'm like, no, I don't do that anymore. And it's not from a arrogance thing. I'm like, I don't understand how these things work anymore. I do emails now.
Are you familiar with the term starchitect?
Star architect?
Yeah.
Like someone who's sort of like the star architect?
Exactly that.
So this is the Frank Lloyd Wright, like
it's
crumple a piece of paper, throw it on the ground, be like,
or like scribbling something on a paper and say, this is going to be the full project, which will take 10 years to build, and an army of 1,000 architects and people like going through every single angle and detail in that design. But what they have done is just created the vision. They never used the tool or the machine, but they are having 30 years of experience behind this scribble.
What's funny is the gap in my knowledge that I recognize that I have. So I still have a very good command of the fundamentals of interaction design. and I can sort of direct visual design when needed, but I'm not going to be the best. Interaction design, still fundamentals of how things work.
Yep.
I'm pretty damn solid there. The
That's what matters.
tools in the middle,
Doesn't matter.
ooh, I'm rough on that. And then you get to the top of the vision side. What I do always try to be careful, though, on that is going into clients and being that person that walks in the room that's like, let me paint this big, grandiose vision. And my team sitting behind me like, no,
we're not
please
doing
stop.
that.
Please, can't build. You don't know the tools. We can't do that. That doesn't exist. Now you're just making up shit now. Stop, right? And so you're always sort of like casting an eye to the team like, am I saying things that are just nuts here?
Well, because of your experience, you will know what nuts looks like. You will know because of previous failed projects or previous infeasible projects that this is not a route that I want to go to. But also, because the fundamentals is strong, you know how to push the envelope. You know that the team might be conforming to what's comfortable.
Yes,
and they want to try out the
yes.
last tactic they tried in the last project, or copy that bank app for that new bank client. And you want to push the limit, but not on the creative, infeasible side.
That will be a topic that comes up a lot, where I will push the team and they'll be like, but I'm like, yes, I know this seems maybe difficult or challenging, but I don't understand why you would want to come into work and not have something challenging. There was a great podcast I just listened to, and I forget the woman's name, but it was brilliant, from Lenny's podcast.
I love Lenny.
Oh man. And this woman was the best interview. She used to work at Meta, but maybe one of the best interviews. And now I'm trying to remember why I even got onto this. Oh, that's right. She was having this conversation. It was her and actually the person the week before as well, that it was better to understaff than overstaff.
100%.
And I had not thought about this because so much of our projects, all I hear from the team is we're understaffed. We can't do this, right? And then I look at what are the activities that are happening. Like, why are you in so many meetings? Well, we need to hear over this from the client. Do you? I try to avoid meetings like the plague. Like, I try to avoid every meeting I possibly can. And I still end up in like 70% of my day is meetings. And it's just that funny arc where I feel like the middle of your career, you're like, I need to be in meetings because like that shows my importance.
Effect,
yeah. And I'm like, I'm really trying not to be in any of them. But the whole idea that you understaff because it's how you meet that challenge, and whatever that law is, where whatever time you have, like, I think designers are actually the worst at this comparatively to engineers or product or anybody else because of the iteration factor. Like, iteration is our thing. That's what makes us a designer. And you're like, well, okay, sure. Yes. Like, but you can also iterate something to death and just put it out, get some feedback on it. But it is comedic to me that we can resource something for 4 weeks or 12 weeks and you sort of end up with the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, not always, right?
Yeah.
And I will defend, people shouldn't be working like nights and weekends up till 2 a.m. No.
That's
but I
not
do think
great planning.
No, agree.
It's about planning.
At the same time, I think
resourcing.
Sometimes, designers are putting the nail gun in their own foot with, we have to do it this way. What says we have to do it that way? It's the design process. Like,
No.
Okay. So like, what if we just made something and we just threw it out to people to test with? We just gave it to engineering. It's not going to be the best. That's fine. Yep. Whatever you make in the next 4 weeks isn't going to be the best. The best is unobtainable, more or less. Even Apple has iterations. Come on now. iPhone shipped without copy and paste. So, it doesn't have to be the best.
Well, here's the thing. It's a completely different rant, but I love this rant. Sadly, design curriculums out there, or whatever boot camps are trying to teach people.
Oh, those are two different things we can get into. So let's stick with curriculum over boot camp, because I hate boot camps.
Well, it depends.
Unless it's Barry's boot camp.
And the thing is, they teach designers, and I feel for them, like, bless their souls. They are junior designers. They're trying to learn from the best, and they go to GA or IDEO or whatever. And I'm not trying to diss anyone. They are really, really good stuff being taught over there. But the byproduct of this kind of teaching is that they are trying to teach people and indoctrinate them into a specific process. You need to do a persona, you need to do the wireframes, and then you need to do the UI, and then you need to implement it with engineers.
And here's a template for everything.
Here's the template, and this is what you need to fill in, and this is the empathy map, and this is the user journey map, and this is the whatever other artifact and craft you need to produce so that you can call yourself a designer. So they are telling them, in order for you to be a designer, you need to produce a lot of outputs rather than outcomes. And the problem here, because they are calling themselves UI, UX, or even product designers, so the output is what defines me. But the experience is what matters. The user is sitting outside waiting for the new app to launch or waiting for this new feature to be fixed. What matters is shipping. And that's why when you mentioned iterations, as long as the designer is changing the solution on Figma and hasn't shipped, I don't call it an iteration. It's just another edit, another version. An iteration happens when you ship something, you see it if it's working or not with the actual intended users in the actual intended context, and then you iterate based on this fact rather than on your taste, on the VP's feedback or the client feedback. Even that is not an iteration.
I will tell you, one of the hardest things to convince designers of is that, like, let's say, once you get to the executive level, this is incredibly true, but even at a director and above, I don't care about your process or your work or your iterations.
Ship.
Designers
Just
like
ship.
will argue with me like mid-level, right? Like,
Yeah.
but we have to show the process. I don't care. And I just got into this conversation, this poor, like, great woman out of the UK in Sapient. We had a review of some of the work that she had been doing, and it was great work, but she gets into it. I'm like, okay. What's the challenge you're solving? Right. I'm like, I can only wait about 60 seconds before. Okay, well, we can go to that slide. Yes, let's go to that slide. All right. Okay, I got the challenge. Makes total sense. Like, you articulated this really well. What's the solution? Well, that's really told in this story. No, don't care. What's the one slide?
It's 2 slides.
Well, I don't really, well, it's sort of this, don't care. Okay. Like, cool. We're 5 minutes in. Good. I needed my time back anyway. Go make me 3 slides. 1, what's the challenge? 2, what's the solution? 3, how you're going to go about implementing it. I said, how big is your deck now? 48 slides. Yeah, I'm not looking at that. Like, and I felt rude because I was like, you made all of this, and so you want somebody to view it. But in the end, I just care about the outcome that I need to solve the problem that I have.
Absolutely.
I don't care about anything else. And it is, I don't know if it is arrogance or, like you said, it is design curriculum that bakes this idea in my head that the process and the iteration is the important part versus the output or the outcome.
Yeah.
But in some way that's such a lesson for designers to unlearn and relearn
100%.
and understand when you walk into the room with a C-level person, they don't care about any of that.
Yep.
And God, if you have an hour with a C-level person, you prepare a deck for 5 minutes. That's it. You do not and then have
That's literally why it's called executive summary.
Yeah.
Literally.
and I always tell people,
Yeah.
have the 100-page appendix, because if there's a question, you need to have an answer for that.
100%.
But otherwise, it's like, okay, I can read this. I can sort of see where you're going. Got it. Let's move.
Yeah. This is the problem. This is the solution. This is how the solution solved that problem that we just identified in the wild. And this is the data out of this.
That is sort of nice with AI tools, right? It gets me to the purpose or the ending quicker.
Yeah.
And then it tells me how it's going about the process. So if I have a question about the ending, like, maybe actually AI tools are a perfect analogy. Is that what I want to use? Analogy for executive meetings. I type a challenge I have. It gives me an output. I'm like, okay. And then if I want to, I can say, tell me how you got there, or tell me about this, and it will. right?
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Like that.
But that designer, that specific person who took from his time or her time a lot of time to produce this 80 pages or 80 slides long deck, it's going to be twice as bad with AI tools, because the brain that produced these slides manually will produce the same amount of slides with AI, but automatically or quite faster. So she will end up producing 160 slides. But in the end, the clarity of mind is, what am I trying to convey to my users? And in that context, it's the executives that I'm with, right?
So that executive summary, I'm gonna go off on a slightly different tangent on this.
Yeah.
But that ability to understaff, overall, I feel like companies, you always get too much bloat. You can always do more. The question that I will always have for people when we're doing a proposal and somebody will put together a team of like 10 designers, I'll say, is that really needed? Oh yeah, there's this and there's that. I'm like,
10 designers on a specific project?
Yeah, sure. I'm just making numbers up at the moment.
Because that's a huge amount of number.
But the idea is like, oh, we have to have all of these different designers. Like, okay, if we were just two people in a garage, could we do this?
100%.
Well, I mean, we have to shortcut this and that and this and that. I'm like, okay, here's the budget we need to fit within. This is the realistic number.
Yeah.
That budget only has 2 designers. How do we get to success with that? Well, you can't. Okay. So then you have to have the next like week's worth of conversations around what are the things that need to happen or need to be true, or how do we need to work, or what do we need to adjust in order to have that work. But thus far, I think that's something that, again, this is an unlearning. Maybe that's going to be the title of this episode. It's like all unlearning. You started out with what is a product designer, right? So we're unlearning what is UX and UI, because we should be learning about product or experience, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing? We're unlearning the curriculum that was taught, because the curriculum is great for us. It is not great for the business world.
Or
right?
the real world in general.
Yeah. So, and then you're unlearning how you're sort of approaching what you share and what you present. And that leads me to what may be the final topic. That one of the things, I don't know where this got drilled into me. I think from reading so many business books and listening to so many podcasts. And ironically, we have a podcast, so I speak a lot. Saying less means something. One of the things, I don't know where this got drilled into me. I think from reading so many business books and listening to so many podcasts. And ironically, we have a podcast, so I speak a lot. Saying less means something. And it drives me bonkers, right? Because I think I've worked and practiced when I go into executive presentations, how I act, how I convey, what my voice is, what my body language is, all of these elements. I'm thinking now of a specific time we were presenting, and it was a CEO, and it was mostly an experience-driven presentation. And so I'm presenting and talking, and one of the other internal people who I worked with, who internally will oftentimes tell you how important he is, and oftentimes tell you how much of the business he runs, right? And he was the first one to jump up and be like, well, what Joe is trying to say, right? And you're like, what? Why are you saying? Like, literally, the CEO did not ask a question. It was just a moment of pause, right? So a moment of pause. I'm delivering a lot of new information. This person is receiving a lot of new information that, right, for an experience. Yeah. You don't need to jump in. And the fact that you're doing that makes us look weak. It makes us look not confident, not only in our people, but in what we are sharing. And when you talk over each other, or when you say more, it is just more and more reasons to not, or to present yourself in a light that is not one of confidence.
Yeah. You know the old saying, big dogs don't bark.
Oh, I thought it was going to be the, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. Right?
That's Abraham Lincoln.
Huh?
That's Lincoln.
Is it Lincoln or is it Twain? I didn't know. Like,
as far as I know, maybe we can look it up.
It's
It's Lincoln. He was trying to write a letter for someone as a general on the front.
I mean, it is so true, right? Yeah. Like, yep, this would have been shorter, but there wasn't time.
Big dogs don't bark. And going to the point about read the room, and it's the experience design. So you need, as a designer, if you are designing to executive presentation, that experience should be different if you are designing that same presentation, that same review, that same show and tell to your team, to your squad, to engineers. The story you will tell to your engineers when we're implementing the solution is completely different, or 80% different from the story you're going to tell to the CEO. So design that experience properly as a designer in the team.
You're getting to something which is really important. Know your audience and speak to the audience about those things, and different audiences require different things. Yet so many times, and this is not just the designer's thing, but people produce one deck that is meant to be universal versus I need to convey to an engineering audience. And by the way, you don't always need decks for everything. I love when people just present out of Figma, present raw files. I'm very happy with that, as long as you have the challenge, whatever, critical things set up well.
Yeah. And also the method of delivery is also bespoke. So for example, in the board meeting or the high level overview of the project or the progress, you need to be there, probably in person, designing the deck properly to the CEO and the rest of the senior executive team. But for example, if you just implemented a new change in your component or your screen or the flow, you actually don't need a meeting for this, because engineers don't have time. You can record a 5-minute Loom video and send it. Technically, it's a meeting, but it's a one-way meeting, so it doesn't need to be in sync. It can be async, and it will totally work.
Okay, I'm out of Monster Energy drink, which means it's time to wrap it up. But yes, everything that you said, it reminds me of the Jeff Bezos memo from Amazon. This was, I don't know, 2007.
The 6-pager. Yeah.
Well, not the 6-pager. No. This was even a better one. I love that 6-pager because you think deeply about it. But this memo, I think this was 6 bullet points, maybe 7. It was getting Amazon ready to become like AWS. But the 6-pager. The memo was essentially all teams now will produce documentation to expose whatever their resources, APIs, essentially, is what you can think of it as. No teams will communicate through meetings anymore, like different teams. It's all through this documentation. And then the last part was like, any team that doesn't do this is fired.
Oof.
And it was great because now all of a sudden you had to create really robust documentation, think about how that works. And then that was it. Yeah. And I love that. I loved your point. Is there anything, so we've done a hell of a lot of agreement here. Is there anything you want to say to wrap us up and take us home?
Maybe I will come full circle to where we started about the designers.
Take us home. Take us home.
2026. The space is messy, and only the generalists, in my opinion, the generalists who are very confident in their skills and can augment those skills with AI and whatever tools out there are going to survive. The specialists who are very narrow in their focus, very tactical in their discipline, will always stay there rather than become the experienced designers that all teams need. And there is no 2 problems the same. Hence, there shouldn't be 2 solutions the same or 2 processes the same. So if you're rigid about following the process and you're rigid about doing a lot of outputs rather than outcomes and shipping to your customers, you're not going to survive a lot as a designer in 2026. And ironically, everything that we just talked about, you can apply it to 2022 and it will work, because it's quite fundamental to our discipline. But yeah, the future is bright. And I keep saying, the future is human, and designers are in the best situation to lead this future. So looking forward to 2026 and beyond.
I want to say so many things, but it was great to have you back.
Thank you, Joe.
And won't see you next week, Dunbar next week, but then the week after, maybe all of us will be together.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, see you soon, man.
Thanks, Joe. Always good to be here.